everybody in the room knows, Esri GIS is at the heart of all that we do. We've strengthened this relationship with GIS by introducing an exciting new product in 15.1 called Action Manager. This tool is used to configure activity updates and webhooks, which I'll touch on in a few minutes. Activity updates support the population of any field from a map GIS attribute based on the location of a work activity. For example, you are now able to have automated assignments based on geography, or you may have sensitive areas like flood zones you want to label on a work order because it may affect workflow or time frame for reporting the work. So now let's go to the GIS and check out that activity update in action. Many of you are probably familiar with the workflow of selecting an asset from the map and then choosing your work order template in order to create a work order. After the work order processes, you can see that this flood zone field here has been populated. Through the magic of XML, I added that universal custom field to the work order template specifically for this detail, rather than just repurposing an existing field. Now let's take a look at the configuration that powers that process. There are two components to the Action Manager: the action templates and the action events. The action template determines what information will be pulled from the GIS and the field on the work activity that will be populated with that GIS value. As you can see here, I've configured an action template to pull that yes/no flood risk attribute from the zoning districts layer to populate a universal custom field on the work order. Now remember, it said flood zone on the work order, but because it's a universal custom field, it appears as text 1 here. That flood zone label is stored in the XML file. There's a lot of flexibility when configuring these action templates, as I can choose from the work activities here, as well as which field I want to have populated available from this dropdown. The action event is what determines the trigger for when this information is grabbed from the GIS, as well as which templates are affected. I've configured an event that tells Cityworks to take this information from the GIS every time a work order is created, and it applied it to all work orders using this checkbox. There are other options, however, and you have the ability to configure more precise triggers, as well as choose which templates you want to be affected. The action template and the action event together are what create that activity update.
Now, I'd just like to go ahead and provide some background on this development. For years, many of you have asked us to go through and extend that functionality that's always been part of the core of the service request logic, where you're able to go ahead and make the assignments for submit to and dispatch to on a service request based off of the geography of that activity, based off that location. And so we looked at doing that, and once our programmers really started to dig into it, they looked at the new framework and said there's no reason why we have to go ahead and just limit this to the assignment fields. We can go ahead now and take any GIS attribute field, populate it into any Cityworks field, whether that's a service request, a work order, an inspection, or a permit. And so that's the design and the concept of what you're seeing here with the Action Manager. Complementary to the Action Manager is a tool that Bridget mentioned. She's going to head into that next. It's called Webhooks, and that's currently the development name for it. It's something that's going to be released with Cityworks 15.2. But it's really going to go ahead, and what it allows is a way for us to support our clients who are pushing that information in Cityworks out to other applications. So with that Action Manager, we're now taking that information from the GIS, pushing into Cityworks, but we want to make sure for those clients who are doing integration with third-party business systems, we're supporting a way to make it easier for them to maintain that integration, take that Cityworks data out, and process their other applications. And so to show that in more detail, I'm going to hand it back to Bridget.
I'm really excited to introduce webhooks to everyone. They're rather technical, but it is a really exciting new feature. Webhooks are like APIs in that they allow Cityworks to communicate with your other applications. But rather than pulling data into Cityworks like APIs, webhooks push that data out of Cityworks. They take information from a Cityworks work activity and push it into a listening queue for third-party applications to consume. In essence, they notify another application when an event has taken place within Cityworks. You saw earlier how an organization benefits from Cityworks sending work orders, creation, and status updates to the Workforce app, which Billy and Becky demonstrated earlier. Now we're going to dive into that webhook configuration that drives that integration. The configuration of webhooks follows a similar model to the activity updates that I just showed. The action template determines what is put into that queue and where it's being sent, while the action event determines what triggers that event, that action. In this case, the event is specific to the creation of a street plowing work order. The event is tied to the Create Plowing Workforce Assignment template, which is what tells Cityworks to generate a queue message in the format in this template field. The queue service then reads that message and sends the data to the Workforce Assignment Feature Service URL shown here. Based on this configuration, a new assignment is generated in the GIS, and a workforce user can go through that process of assigning the work order and then completing it within Cityworks. There will be another event to notify workforce once the work order is complete or if there's been a different sort of status update. This is the backend configuration that powered the workforce app demonstration that you saw earlier. The Esri apps, however, are just one example. There are many ways webhooks can be applied. Like our APIs, webhooks are a tool that allows Cityworks to communicate with your other critical business systems without having to write and maintain custom tools so that you can create a cohesive solution that's particular to your organization.
And I just wanted to emphasize again, just based off of what Bridget said there, using these webhooks, it's allowing you guys to have a way, as you can see there, it's just a configuration designer. It's not necessary to have as many levels of custom integration to support that third-party system analysis and the data push with Cityworks. And so I've asked Bridget to stick around as well, now that she's covered the GIS enhancements, and those are just the two big ones. There's many more that are going to be available in 15.2, but we don't want to go through everything while we're up here. And so we're going to ask her next to go in and show some of the functionality with custom inspections that was introduced with the release of Cityworks 15.1. And a big focus on that was providing more tool sets for our clients who are going through and using Cityworks and custom inspections for regulatory compliance. Over the years, that's been more and more of a push for our client base. And as those regulatory compliance mandates are applied to our client base, it's really necessary for them to have more functionality for that configuration of the custom inspections to support some of their own custom calculations that are taking place, as well as larger inspections and easing that data collection process on their crews in the field. And so to show that, I'm going to pass it back to Bridget.
Custom inspections were enhanced to support numeric type observations and calculated observations. This catch basin inspection here is configured to calculate the amount of sediment that's being removed based on values that I'm entering for the basin length and width, as well as the amount of sediment that's being removed. Once I hit save, the amount of sediment will be calculated and then converted from inches to cubic feet. Based on inspections that have been completed, I can set up a saved search to find catch basins that may have had a usual amount of sediment by querying the database for the catch basin inspection type that have had greater than 10 cubic feet of sediment removed. I can use this save search to create an event later to display problem areas on the map. So I'm going to go back to the GIS and use this bookmark so I can show you something that I've already set up. This area here shows concentration of catch basin inspections that have large amounts of sediment removed. This visual analysis can be a jumping off point to determine what the cause is. Perhaps just street cleaning needs to be stepped up, or in this case, maybe these nearby construction sites are not taking appropriate measures to prevent soil erosion runoff from entering your storm sewer system. So that previous catch basin inspection was just a simple inspection meant to highlight that calculation enhancement. Lengthy inspections that are done on a regular basis, such as this hydrant inspection, you can see there's a lot of observations that need to be filled out here, may not see frequent changes, but so it'll benefit from the option to clone existing completed inspections. The observations that have been filled in and the attached asset will carry over to that new clone. Inspections can be cloned individually and in bulk by clicking the Clone Inspection button here on the inspection screen. You can clone a lengthy inspection and then simply modify the date and any observations that may have changed. This is a time-saving tool that allows you to do this a lot quicker and simpler rather than having to fill out every single observation each time an inspection needs to be completed. It's great for long visual inspections that are intended to be done on a regular basis with the aim of catching signs of a deteriorating asset or the need for preventive maintenance.
And I hope that you guys will find this stuff useful. I know there's several of you who I speak to who are working with electrical utilities or with Cityworks in relation to water and sewer and storm compliance, where you're going out and visiting visual facility inspections, where there might be, in some of the cases, some of the clients I've spoken to from the electrical industry, there might be 100 observations on that inspection form. They're doing a weekly visit, and maybe 1 or 2 items change every week. This is going to go ahead and allow you to take that previous inspection, like Bridget showed, create a new one, have all the observations the same, change 1 or 2 fields, and move on in the process. So from the time savings and the ease of data collection in the field, it should be a significant enhancement for your end users. And we're pretty excited about it. So thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome, Becky.
Running out of breath, but I got stamina.